Hello everyone, it's Marie and welcome to another video. So today I'm going to be talking to you all about accommodation here in New Zealand. So how to find cheap accommodation or just what kind of accommodation is available when you're either travelling or living here. So yeah, I'm just going to get into it. First of all though, if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel to follow the journey. I work online as an English teacher. I'm also working right now in New Zealand on a working holiday visa as a kiwi fruit picker. I make videos about travelling, I do travel guides, I talk about eating a gluten-free plant-based diet when travelling, and just tons of other videos about just travelling around and what I've learnt and all that stuff. So if you want to follow the journey, subscribe, and yeah, let's just get into it. So getting accommodation here in New Zealand is quite easy and quite casual. Much easier than I found it in Europe. So yeah, there's just a few ways that I've done it personally while I've been here. Obviously, if you're a backpacker and you're travelling around fast, you can stay in the backpackers. They're the like famous hostels around here. Personally, I don't stay in backpackers or hostels because I don't really do hostels because I tend to slow travel. I stay in one place for a long time, I create routes, I get a job, I work online, so hostels aren't my kind of thing, but I know a ton of people that stay in hostels around here, and if you're only here for a few days or whatever, it's a good way to make friends, and they are often a cheap option, but they're not the only option. You don't have to stay in hostels. In fact, there are many ways that you can get, you know, your own private room in a shared house with other people, and it ends up being cheaper than hostels. So that's where I bring you to what I'm doing, which is renting a room in a shared house with other travellers or locals, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm paying $150 a week for my own private room, and it actually ends up being cheaper than a hostel, only I don't have to share a room with 10 people, and I still get to make friends with travellers while I'm here, and because I've got a whole bunch of housemates in this house, and they're from all different countries and all different backgrounds, so it's still really good. And yeah, a lot of people are doing this. You find a lot of people that are here for like kiwi fruit season in Tauranga picking kiwis. They tend to stay in house shares because it's just a really good idea. So the way you can do this is you can find accommodation via like Facebook groups, like Tauranga Apartments, Tauranga rooms to rent, obviously depending on the city you're in, Wellington rooms to rent, Auckland rooms to rent, you know, there's tons of Facebook groups. Also the Facebook Marketplace, which is obviously like universal. You can go on there and you can find a room, or you can just Google search it. You know, you can find places on like Roomster, spareroom.com, I'm trying to think what other ones are available. Just tons of different, you know, short-term or long-term housing kind of casual websites. That's actually how I found this place. I think I got this place from Roomster or something, so definitely have a look on websites like that as well. Another thing you can obviously do is you can do freedom camping. Now, a ton of people that work with me on the orchards do freedom camping because here in New Zealand you can camp in your car or your van in most places if there's not a freedom camping restriction sign up. But there's also a ton of campsites around here where you can stay at too for very cheap, like $10 a night. Extremely cheap to just do camping, and a lot of people do just sleep in their cars, especially here in the Bay of Plenty area. It doesn't get so cold. So, you know, a lot of people, they'll have a nice mattress set up in their cars or their vans, and they just live in their vans, and it's a really good cheap way of just travelling around and living in your van and also working. Another thing you can do obviously is you can do woofing. Woofing's really popular here, and it's kind of like Workaway and HelpX, but woofing is like really popular here in New Zealand in particular. And yeah, you obviously work for some free accommodation. You'll maybe put in 25-30 hours a week of work in exchange for a free place to stay. Often it'll include some sort of food. And yeah, it's a really good way of doing it. You can obviously also volunteer at hostels. Sometimes they'll give you free accommodation if you do so many hours of volunteering, stuff like that. So definitely look into volunteering options. Obviously there's farm work as well, which will often include a room, and even some orchard work will also include a room to stay in. So definitely look into places where you can get free accommodation included. Obviously there's the option of au pairing as well, where you take care of people's kids, and often you'll get some sort of money for that in exchange for accommodation as well. So there are other ways that you can do kind of work for accommodation here in New Zealand. So another thing you can do is what I did all throughout Europe last year, and it's house sitting. Now, house sitting is quite popular here. You can use the typical trustedhousesitters.com. There's a link in the description. It gives you, I think it's 20% off the price if you're interested in joining. So definitely follow that link, because Trusted House Sitters is the website that I used last year to get free accommodation for about 6 months straight all throughout Europe, and I got amazing house sits in beautiful places like Monaco, Spain, in the mountains with waterfalls, in Hamburg, Germany, Berlin, Germany, Heidelberg, Germany, Toulouse, France, Brighton, the UK, I house sat on a boat, it was awesome. So you know, we got so many awesome house sits throughout last year. With house sitting you get free accommodation in exchange for taking care of people's cats or dogs or plants or whatever animals they have, so definitely look into house sitting. Here in New Zealand there's a website called Kiwi House Sitters. I haven't personally used it, but I'll link it below. Kiwi House Sitters is one I would recommend here in New Zealand because obviously it is for Kiwi house sitting, which obviously means New Zealand house sitting, so definitely look into that one. And there's also some other house sitting websites as well, but personally my experience comes from Trusted House Sitters, so I would also obviously recommend those. So that's pretty much it. Another thing you can do obviously is you could do some couch surfing. That's definitely a thing here too, although personally I haven't had a lot of couch surfing experience. I did do some couch surfing in Europe and had an awesome time, but I haven't done it here in New Zealand, but I do know a lot of people that do. But I don't think it's such a big thing here in New Zealand, but it is still an option, so definitely look into that. Oh, and obviously you can do Airbnb as well. Airbnb is quite popular here, and obviously you can do the long-term Airbnbs here like you can anywhere. One thing I have found though is Airbnb here can be a little more pricey if you're doing it longer term, but once again, I mean, you can just message somebody on Airbnb and ask them if they'll give you like a discount for staying for a month or two, and then you can get a long-term Airbnb for a good price. I mean, when we were staying in Budapest in Hungary, we had our Airbnb for 7 weeks and we rented a private room in a shared house, kind of like this actually, and it ended up being extremely cheap because they gave us a 45% discount for staying for the month. So definitely look into Airbnb as well. When we first turned up in Tauranga, we stayed in an Airbnb for the first 5 days in Welcome Bay area, and the people we met in that Airbnb were awesome, really nice people, and yeah, they actually were going to rent us that room for long term, but we ended up finding this instead. So Airbnb is an option, and obviously another option is simply looking at signs outside of shops and in shop windows and stuff, and on notice boards. You find a lot of people, they'll put on a notice board, you know, room to rent, this place, this price, phone this number. You get those all around shops and stuff in notice boards, so definitely look at those as well if you're looking for a place to stay in an area for a longer term. So, but I have found as a whole it's really chilled out and relaxed here. The way accommodation works in the long term here is normally you'll pay like a 1 or 2 week bond, which is like 1 or 2 weeks of rent, and here you tend to get paid weekly, so you'll pay your rent weekly, which is totally a culture shock because I'm used to the UK where obviously you get paid monthly and you pay your rent monthly, but here you pay weekly and you get paid weekly. So usually you'll pay like 1 or 2 weeks of rent up front for your place, and that's pretty much it. You don't really sign a contract, you don't have to like pay a deposit, you just pay a bond and you move in, and it's really casual because there's tons of travellers and backpackers and just casual work and seasonal work here in New Zealand. So it's really normal to just roll up to a town, find a place to live within a few days, and you can stay here for like a month or 6 months. It's really chill, really casual. Everyone is really easygoing and friendly around here, so finding accommodation for things like, you know, seasonal work is really easy. And honestly, I would always recommend you try to find something like what I have, where you find a room to rent for a few weeks or a few months, because honestly it is cheaper than a hostel and you still meet cool people and you do get the privacy of having your own room and you don't have to share with like 10 people. So I mean, I'm not dissing hostels, I think they're great. I've stayed in hostels in the past, but personally I just find it cheaper and easier to rent a room. I find it much more casual, and it's just how I personally enjoy it because I feel like I'm living a bit more like a local, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, definitely remember that it is possible for you to live in a room share, and that it is casual and easy to find them. In the UK I find that people are so paranoid, they make you fill out loads of contracts and they make you do loads of like reference checks, and it's crazy, whereas here it's just so relaxed and chilled out to find a place to stay, even for short term. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful and that these tips were of some use to you if you're coming to New Zealand. So yeah, I'm just going to end this here. I hope you enjoyed it. Give me a like if you liked the video and subscribe to see more content about travelling New Zealand, working online, you know, travelling around as a solo traveller now, because as you know, I'm no longer with Andy. I am travelling on my own now, so that's a new thing for me. So yeah, just follow the journey and we'll see where it goes. So see you next time. Bye.